to talk about a very important issue, immigration policy in this country, or lack of. We wrote a letter to Senator Crist highlighting deficiencies we feel that is in the Senate legislation. Americans support the House of Representatives legislation 2-1 over any Senate proposal which offers amnesty. It is essential that we have enforcement of our borders and interior immigration laws be enforced first. Border security is a vital step in ensuring national security, and border security is national security. In light of strong voter attitudes against the Senate approach toward immigration reform, the time has come for the Senate to act on comprehensive immigration enforcement legislation and reject calls to grant amnesty for 12 to 20 million illegal aliens currently in the United States. Our country desperately needs secure borders and a comprehensive immigration enforcement plan. If the Senate passes their current comprehensive legislation, consider some statistics. It would allow an estimated 103 million people to immigrate to the United States legally over the next 20 years. This is 1/3 of the current population of the United States. I would like to introduce Steve King. He's a great congressman who represents Iowa's 5th Congressional District since 2002. Even though Iowa's not a border state, I'm glad that Steve King is here to share his concerns regarding the Senate's legislation and illegal immigration in our country.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate pulling this together, and we have an opportunity to speak again about the issue that's so essential to the American people. I mean, all the American people. We're a nation that believes in the rule of law, and we know that any nation can't call themselves a nation if they don't have a border, and it's not a border if you don't defend the border and define the border. That's all we're asking for. And in the 5.5 years of the administration and the 8 years of the previous administration, we saw enforcement of both domestically and at the border go down and down and down, where it was effectively non-existent. We stood up in this caucus, in this Congress, for enforcement first, enforcement only, until you can earn the credibility of having a kind of border control, so that we can then begin to have potentially a legitimate discussion on what to do with the people that are here that will not go home, even if you shut off the jobs bank.
Every time I see one of my Senate colleagues who is a little squishy on this issue, or even some of my House colleagues it may be, I always ask them, who are you responding to? Who are you hearing from? How many thousands of people are calling your office every single day or sending you an email every single day saying, I demand a guest worker amnesty program? The fact is, nobody is doing that, or very few. On the other hand, how many people do you hear from every single day? Email, phone call, letter. I mean, our office, I'm sure, is like everybody else's here. We can hardly get anything else done because we're answering the phones constantly to people saying, we want that border secure. We want an end to illegal immigration. That's what they want. And I suggest to my colleagues in the Senate and even some on the House side that may still be wondering about this, that they should respond to what the people are asking them for. And nobody is asking them for an amnesty plan.
The wages of our working people are being brought down by this flood of illegals. Their government has failed them. The American people have been failed by their government. They're being failed by the Senate. They're being failed by our president. It is time for the American people to speak out with outrage and to help the people who are making decisions here make the right decision, which is not to legalize the status of those 20 million illegals who are here, because if we do, there will be another 20 million illegals here in a very short order, and will do even more damage to the American middle class.
Senate bill and the president's position becomes the position of this country, the invasion will not stop, because the biggest magnet is still there, and that's amnesty. Come on in, no matter how you get here, even though you're violating law after law. Come on in, we'll work it out for you. What our position needs to be, and it needs to be clear. The president needs to say to all of America, under my watch, there will be no amnesty, period. The position of the House needs to be, there will be no amnesty, period. The position of the Senate needs to be, there will be no amnesty, period. If we took that position, many of those here illegally now would march on back to Mexico, and they would always
have broken the law. We have with us today some people who tell you their feelings about whether or not those who broke the law to get here should be granted any special treatment. My hat's off to them, and I hear from constituents in my district too, who did all the right things, that they do not believe that whether you call it amnesty light or amnesty or let's just let them in, have a y'all come policy, it really doesn't matter. We are a nation of laws and we need to remain that way.
And I am appalled at how out of touch so many people in Washington, D.C. are on this whole issue. I have the greatest respect for people who waited their turn and patiently waited and came to America legally. They value it. They treasure their citizenship. That's what my grandparents did when they were immigrants to the United States. But people who steal their way into the country will not treasure being an American citizen. And the American people know that common sense says, if you tell somebody who's here illegally that you can stay and that you have a chance to become a citizen, then it is amnesty.
The president's plan for a guest worker program is nothing more than amnesty wearing makeup. It's prettier to look at, but it's still ugly underneath. And I'll tell you, what we must have is respect for the law. It's not anti-immigrants, it's anti-illegal immigrants. It is pro-legal immigrants. We don't want 11 to 15 million illegals jumping in line in front of those who have been trying to come to this country for years. We should welcome those that come to this country and want to do that in a legal fashion. If you break the law to come to this country, you will not respect it once you're here. That's why the House version of Border Security First is the right approach, and the American people endorse it. Thank you.